the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this, it's Saturday, August 22nd. I am in Barcelona, and it's, what is it? It's 9 p.m. here, but we today have our AMA Hangout. We've got Jennifer and Umlan with us. We'll see who else joins over time. I guess these are the summer doldrums. It seems like the number of people engaged has gone down this month, but we'll see. Oh, there we go. There's Catherine. All right. So we'll do a round with our panel, and then we'll see if we have any super chats. We'll go to super chat. Those of you who are on live can ask questions, and just use the super chat feature on your phone or on your computer. All right. Let's start with Jennifer.
When I first started reading philosophy, like that woman that you talked about yesterday, you read that article, that you read the stuff and it's so complicated and it doesn't make any sense. And then when I read Ayn Rand, I was like, this makes sense. And I knew I wasn't stupid, but I thought this makes sense. So I used to wonder, those other people, I don't know if they do this on purpose consciously, but like they try to make it all complicated and make you think like, oh, I'm not smart enough to get this, so they must know more than I do or something. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that over many, many years, like for decades, academia just creates its own language. They talk to one another, they build up their own vocabulary, they create a certain way of speaking and a way of arguing and a way of debating. And it's not new, and particularly with kind of, I think, analytical philosophy, where, there are ways in which you make an argument and you structure it in a particular way, and it's not necessarily related to reality, right? I mean, one of the things that makes Rand so understandable is she connects everything to reality. She concretizes everything. She connects everything to facts, and they don't have that, partially because the whole idea of connecting things to facts is, I think I mentioned this yesterday, it's kind of the primacy of existence orientation, and I don't think most people necessarily have that. So a lot of logic and reason to them is mind games. So they've created this language. They all talk it. They talk to one another. They don't think that's weird because everybody around them talks that way. They teach their students to talk that way. They think they're the ones engaged in reasoning, and that we are superficial, and because we don't engage at that, in the way that they do. And I think it's just when you get a PhD, you learn this language, you learn how to do it. You had to write your dissertation that way. You make presentations in front of colleagues that way, and you're just trained into it. And it's very difficult for academics to break out of it. Once in a while, you meet an academic, like in philosophy, and they talk English, and you go, wow, cool, this is so cool. But then you see them make a presentation on a philosophical issue, and they're completely lost. I mean, I knew a guy who was the chairman of the department, really, really nice guy. I mean, the kind of guy you'd like to hang out with. He's a philosopher and spoke English most of the time. And then when I started giving a presentation, it was like, what is he talking about? So I don't know that it's conscious. It's something that's been going on for 200 years. I mean, go back to Kant. God, reading Kant is like, I can't understand him. I don't know what he's talking about.
And that is this, I just thought there's that criticism they'll use of Ayn Rand, she was, quote, simplistic.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Hegel was actually worse than Kant, so Hegel's even less understandable than Kant. And yet people love this stuff, right? Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Ahmad.
Yeah, so you're on a little while ago you talked a few times about visiting like countries in the Middle East and Cuba and things like that. And I think with Cuba, you had specifically mentioned about, the reason that you wouldn't go is you're giving money to the government, basically,
Yep.
when you
Yep.
go. So despite your view, actually, I did do a trip with my brother and his two young kids as a boys' trip. We went to the Middle East a few months ago in June,
Okay.
kind of right in the middle of all the things being thrown at Dubai.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
the timing worked out great. So we had a great time. And I mean, one of the reasons that we went was, we wanted to expose the boys and ourselves to here's a different culture. And okay, we didn't live there, we didn't understand the day-to-day stuff, but you could see the difference in attitude
Sure.
among people. Definitely the Arabs that are there, or the people that are citizens there, they have an arrogance that's
Oh, yeah.
quite,
Oh,
quite
yeah.
amazing, actually. But just, in terms of like general, one of the things I found, and I don't know if you've noticed this in your travels, is, the easygoing way that people will at like playgrounds and stuff interact with each other doesn't happen there. Like most people, they don't look at you, they don't make eye contact, smiling and stuff. It's hard. Like I think in many places we went, we had one conversation with somebody who lived there.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is, we didn't feel that we were directly giving the money to the government. I mean, we're primarily dealing with middle, like private individuals. And I tell you, I haven't felt safer in a lot of
Hmm.
places.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
clean,
Yeah.
organized. I mean,
Beautiful skyscrapers. Yeah.
yeah,
Beautiful streets. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I can see the appeal, I think, on the surface that people have when they say, "Oh, it's a great place to live" and stuff like that. But
No, I get it. And Dubai is not Cuba, so I don't think your money is going to the government. There's a real private sector there. There is
yeah,
private property. It's dependent on the sheik upholding it, but
yeah.
there is private. There's no constitution. There is private property, and yes, I don't see any problem for people to visit Dubai. Um, I
We
would.
did go to Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman also.
You
Just
went
we
to what?
what Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman.
Oh,
So
you
we
did
did.
go to Qatar,
Yeah,
Bahrain, and Oman.
yeah,
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 I mean, I have no problem with that. I mean, Qatar is a little different because I think
yeah,
Qatar is actively engaged in working against the United States and against our interests, and therefore it's kind of an enemy. But Dubai is
yeah.
not, and Oman is not. Oman is pretty insignificant. Bahrain is not. Um, yeah, I
Oh,
think that
wasn't Trump going to destroy Oman too, like 2 days ago or something?
yeah, I mean, add Oman to the list.
That's
There's a
right.
long list of countries
I mean, he's going to
Trump is
invade
going to
Canada
destroy.
anyways.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I wouldn't go
Yeah,
because I've said things about Islam, and
yeah,
I don't want I don't want to give anybody an excuse, right, to come after me. And while it might be safe, there are elements of radical Islam in all these countries, particularly Qatar. Qatar is the hub of the Muslim
yeah,
Brotherhood, so I certainly wouldn't go there. I don't know if I'm on a list. Probably not. I'm probably too small. But
yeah,
why would I even take a risk? I mean, I think I've told the story about the Malaysia. This is years ago. This is after 9/11. I met a kid in I think at Oxford in England, and he said, "Hey, you should come to Malaysia to give a talk." And he contacted me, and actually from Malaysia, and he actually said, I can arrange a talk for you here, and you can come and
yeah,
talk in Malaysia. And I
yeah.
said, okay, I want you to go back to the people, and I want you to ask them if they can guarantee my safety,
Right,
guarantee my security.
right.
And he came back 2 weeks later, and he said, maybe we should do the talk in Singapore. Um, so, and that's Malaysia, right? That's the other
Yeah,
side of the world. So I don't know if I'm on a list. I just would rather not risk it. But I
yeah. No, it
understand the
makes sense.
appeal. It's beautiful. It's modern. It's high tech. The skyscrapers are astounding. Israelis go there all the time. I mean, last time I flew into Tel Aviv, there were more Dubai airline, airline, airplanes on the ground than El Al. I mean,
Right.
Israelis love going there because they love, they can spend their money there. They can bring back. I guess it's fairly cheap. And but I don't think Israelis are really safe there. Not really. And
Yeah,
and here's the thing: that arrogance that you said the Arabs have, that's the arrogance that we should worry about. That's their
agree.
confidence to some extent that they will rule the world, and
Yeah.
God has given it to them.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in that presence.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of places around the world. I mean, this. I mean, there are a lot of places you can take kids to appreciate other cultures. I mean, particularly Asia. I think Japan,
Yeah.
South Korea, Thailand, all these places. They're not. I mean, Japan and South Korea as safe as Dubai, maybe not as clean, but as safe. And anyway, yeah, I get going there. I don't have a problem with that. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, completely understand, and I get it, and there was definitely times where that arrogance was starting to piss me off.
Yeah.
And, like one case, a very quick example, like we were in this kind of crowded square where they had stuff in glass, very nice, and these guys were like they were almost running over my nephew because it's like like get out of the way, kid, kind of attitude,
Yeah.
right? And I just then, I kind of like forcefully put myself in between and said, okay, you want to push me? Like,
Yeah.
like, okay, you can push a 9-year-old, but how about you try it with me, kind of thing. And
Yep.
just
Yeah.
that kind of attitude was,
And that kind of behavior can happen in lots of places around the world. It's just,
yeah, like the Russians are bad for that too. Right?
yes, but
Yeah.
there and in Russia, I
Yeah.
would be I'd be worried about standing up to them.
Oh yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I had these ultra religious Jews behave that way, ultra Orthodox Jews on a plane in
Okay.
landing in Poland, and I got so upset. I mean, I yelled at these guys and forced them to back off.
Yeah.
And I can do that. I mean, well, nothing's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But if I was in Dubai, or if I was in Moscow,
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, like in this case, I wasn't gonna physically get into it because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, there's no
Yeah.
chance that I would have to come out good in this. But it was just establishing a little bit of a boundary just to see what would happen, and they
Yeah.
did back down, right? Like they didn't try
yeah,
to
usually
push.
bullies do back down.
Yeah. So
Good, thanks,
thanks.
Alan. Catherine, you're muted. Should I skip over Catherine? Let's skip over.
Wait, sorry. Yeah, can you skip over me and come back to me the next round? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Jacob.
Hey, you're on out
Hey.
here in sunny California, Ventura.
All right, the sun is right behind you. You're better now, but before the
Yeah.
sun was right behind you, blaming me.
Yeah, it's El Nino, so it's warm here. The house is 82, and we're getting used to it. But really
All
love
right,
it
so
so far.
congratulations on moving to California. But yes, August can be pretty hot in California. But you've got
Yeah.
air conditioning, I assume.
We do, but we stretched our budget for the house, so we're trying to see what the budget is before we
Okay.
start using it. So
Yeah.
trying to get natural
Electricity.
ventilation first.
Electricity is expensive in California.
Yep. So question I had was listening to Henry Hazlitt's book on the way on down, and I was after listening to it, I was like, what is the purpose of this book? Because it is nice to have more information. You're better able to make connections between what people say and the fallacies. But the fallacies are known. Everyone knows them. You spend 5 minutes and you can say, hey, here's a fallacy you're doing, but people still do it because morally they say we need to do this policy. And then that's just going to override any logic or any response to the conversation. So it's nice to have the information, but I think the more I read it, the more I was like, or listened to it, the more I was like, this is nice to have, but it's not going to convince or it's not going to make any actual change in the world until you can say, hey, you shouldn't be able to take someone else's property rights, or you shouldn't be able to infringe on their freedom of association.
Sure, I mean that's absolutely true. That without the moral arguments, the philosophical arguments, we're not going to make any real progress in terms of changing the world. I don't think it's true that everybody knows the fallacies, and I think it often opens people's eyes when you actually articulate the fallacies to them. The more honest people at least have to say at that point, okay, well, something's wrong. And that opens up a possibility of then engaging them with the more fundamental ideas. I mean, it's shocking how, basically there's one fallacy, which he explains, which is the broken window fallacy, and everything else is a broken window fallacy. And it's amazing how many people buy into the broken window fallacy of one sort or another. And just pointing out people's inconsistency and understanding it and knowing it is important. Now, remember also, he wrote this in 1947, I think. So he wrote it early when a lot of economic knowledge was not available.
He did at least the version I listened to an update, I think 38 years later, where
Yeah.
it was a review on the past knowledge.
Yeah, he did updates. And he was an economics writer in the New York Times. He was the New York Times economic correspondent. Imagine a laissez-faire guy like him being the New York Times economics writer back then. He didn't change the world by doing that, but you need everything. Look, it's not one dimension. It's not we'll somehow convince everybody that individual rights and it'll all be over. You have to attack it from a variety of different angles. Different people will respond to different arguments. At the end, you need the entire package, and you need to get to the moral fundamentals. But not everybody's going to come at it from morality. In the transition from where we are today to where we want to be, we're going to need good economists to explain the economics of what's going on and why the policies don't work and what policies actually will work.
And in the book, he mentioned a whole lot on purchasing price parity, and that was probably every page or every other page it would bring up the purchasing price parity, which I know what that is. Was that a lot more common back in the day of comparing the purchasing price of this currency, that currency, or if you
I
what
can't
a household
remember. I can't remember that big of an emphasis in the book on it, but my guess is he's arguing for free trade, and purchasing power parity is one of the ways to argue for free trade, or at least to show the economic fallacy involved in. And so my guess is he's writing at the end of World War II. Tariffs are very high across the board. Last time there was free trade was pre-World War One. And, so it's a long time. And there's an argument. He's part of the group that's making an argument for free trade. And look, on that front, you have to give him credit. They won, right? So free trade became, until Trump, free trade became kind of the acceptable, this is what we're moving towards, this is what we want. They didn't do it all at once like we would like, but they were at least moving in that direction. So they won that argument, but until Trump reversed it all. And yeah, but even there, you're not going to get fully until you understand individualism and you understand your right to trade with whoever you want. It's none of the government's business.
Yep, makes sense. Thanks. And then for Omlin in Asia, also consider Taiwan to visit too, not just Japan and South Korea.
Taiwan. I'd like to visit Taiwan. I've never been to Taiwan.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'll be there in April for honeymoon dinner, and then go on the honeymoon to Japan.
Yeah, cool.
Well, part of the reason why we went to the Middle East was our respective spouses didn't want to go, so this was a place we could go where they didn't want to go. So it was a boys' trip.
There you go. That tells you something, that the spouses don't want to go.
Yeah, no, and I completely got
it.
Yeah. Well, I think my wife was a little bit jealous after she saw the pictures and stuff.
Yeah,
because we did have fun.
That's good. Yes, it is surprising I've never been to Taiwan, but I'd really like to go. I've never been. There's never been anybody who's invited me to come speak there, and it's surprising, but there's never had.
Do a connection one day. Spend a couple of days at least.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a very vibrant city. It's my first time in a major Asian city, but it was very vibrant, very lively. Everyone was nice and polite. The cab drivers are cab drivers, but I really loved it.
Yeah, good. I've been to many, many other Asian cities, but never there. All right, Andrew's joined us. Hey, Andrew.
How you doing, Yaron?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How about you?
I'm good.
Good.
Thank you for scolding me for watching Candace Owen show clips. It somehow started getting, obviously. Well, part of the problem is I'm unemployed right now, which
Yeah.
is a situation that's ending soon, thankfully. But definitely fell down the social media rabbit hole. And
I'd rather watch kittens than Candace Owens.
oh, I was
And
getting
I hate
Tucker.
kittens. I have nothing to do with kittens. I
I
don't
was
hate
getting
kittens.
Tucker. I was getting Candace Owen. I mean, they
Yeah.
really put me in a box that was like a little scary, but it did. There's some like dark curiosity that just like know your enemy kind of thing, but
Yeah.
you got to be careful because you do fall into the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I'm done with that. But so here's my question for you, which is totally unrelated. What are I'm trying to think of like how best to formulate it. Your top 3 artworks in the fine arts outside of Ayn Rand. And you can answer that in any way that you want. Like, what do you find most inspiring? What do you find most technically impressive? Like, just what stands out to you from your experience in being an observer of artwork for a long time now? What are your top 3?
Top 3, God. I mean, that's so hard.
Because I know David's going to be one, so I didn't want to ask just your top.
Yeah, David would definitely be one. I mean, Hugo, Les Miserables, or 93, although I haven't read either one in a long time, so I should read them again because they're so good. They're so inspiring. They're so value oriented. I don't know, Beethoven's Symphony Number 7, or his fourth piano concerto, or Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto. I mean, there's so many. God, it's hard even to make a top 10 just in music, never mind in anything else. I'm trying to think if there's a painting that really stands out. I can't say I have a favorite painting. I don't think I have a favorite painting. Yeah, so those would be 3 examples. I mean, they're all technically brilliant. I find them all unbelievably inspiring. And they're all value oriented and really full of, I don't know how to call it, energy. I mean, Beethoven obviously exudes energy and dynamism, not necessarily positivity about the world, although the Seventh Symphony I think is quite positive. So those would be 3.
Does Beethoven inspire you, or is it more like just the experience of the music is so viscerally stimulating that, like, how would you describe your reaction to Beethoven?
I mean, I find it unbelievably energizing and motivating and enjoyable. And I mean, I think at the end of the day that energy it comes in the form of, in a sense, translates into kind of inspiration. So the music inspires. You want to go out and do something. So it's hard to talk about music. It's hard to fully conceptualize what it is that music does to you.
Yeah, I would say my reaction, because I mean, Beethoven's an interesting one just because of what Ayn Rand's view of Beethoven was, which was not a positive one. And I can see exactly what she's saying. Like, I do sense the malevolent undertones to it, but the technical brilliance of it to me is so like it's just beyond anything else that I've experienced in music.
Yes, I think that's right. And I think the malevolence appears in some of his music, but not necessarily in all of it. And so here's the essence of the malevolence, I think, in Beethoven. I mean, by the way, and I think she thought, or at least Marianne Suarez thought, that the David has a certain malevolence to it. So you know, that
She
wrinkled
didn't like the
forehead.
sense of life of Michelangelo. She specifically said that.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Once you once you get away from the David, I think that's right. But post David, I think his sense of life really takes a beating, and could do a whole talk about that. I mean, it's basically that he takes his Christianity seriously, and I think when he does the David, he's still young enough where that is not affecting him yet. The same is true of the Pietà, his first Pietà, but it's no. But Mary Ann Suez, I think, in her article about metaphysics of marble, talks about the frown on his face, and that looks like he's something malevolent. I don't completely buy it. I don't think that's true. But in Beethoven, I see it. And in Beethoven, I think the reality is that Beethoven his music is about conflict. And most of the time, the conflict gets resolved in favor of the good guys, in a sense. But the conflict is always there. There's always a conflict. It's not just everything's nice and happy and pleasant, to some extent. There's drama in Rachmaninoff, but there's not this underlying sense of conflict, of drama, of two elements opposed to each other. Even the piano concertos you don't get the sense of the piano versus the orchestra. You certainly do that with Beethoven. Maybe the best example of that is his fourth piano concerto. If you take the second movement of the fourth piano concerto, and you see the dialogue between the piano and the orchestra, and the orchestra is clearly this malevolent force. It's clearly this dark force, and the piano is clearly this light, positive force. And as the movement evolves, the orchestra gets muted and the piano gets stronger, and so the light overcomes the darkness. And of course, the third movement is then all victory, and that's why I particularly like it, because you get that sense. There is conflict, but the good wins in the Seventh Symphony and the Ninth Symphony, and in the piano concerto, and I think even in the Fifth and the Third symphonies, the good actually wins. But a lot of the music is dedicated to the conflict. But I find that.
But even if the good wins, Yaron,
my particular sense of life and my particular values, I find that invigorating, and exciting.
The one thing is a question I would have, because I'm thinking and she didn't say a lot about Beethoven, but you said some remarks about it, and they were kind of offhanded. Like you just substantiated your opinion a lot more than she substantiated hers, that I heard. But she had the opposite overall conclusion, that in his music, the evil wins, or that man is doomed. And I guess, like, if I were playing devil's advocate, I would say what I sense in his music is, even if like the light wins in the end, but and you're much more of a connoisseur than I am of Beethoven, but a lot of the actual content of the music is still the conflict. Is the dark. It's the conflict. Yeah.
It's not the darkness, it's the conflict. And
conflict, yeah.
And she viewed somebody who holds conflict as the essence of life. If art is a selective recreation of an artist based on an artist's metaphysical value judgment, then if conflict is your metaphysical value judgment, in a sense, then that's malevolent. And I'm saying, yeah, I think that's right. But I also think there's an upside, because I think usually you get rewarded for that conflict with victory. But even if not, the conflict itself is interesting and energizing and stimulating. But it could very well be. I mean, it is a difference in my sense of life and Ayn Rand's sense of life. We're not.
How do you feel about what she loved, that Tiddlywink music?
I mean, it's enjoyable, but I couldn't listen. It's enjoyable, but I couldn't listen to it a lot.
I wonder if that's an age thing, though. Like, for of a certain time, that might have been a little more appealing to people.
She grew up in the early 20th century, which was a very, very different sense of life, a very, very different culture. than I think the post-World War One world was. So the world was a different world before World War One, and I think you get that from a lot of people who lived through that period. And there was a lightness, there was a benevolence, there was a optimism and a positivism that just evaporated with World War One. And the Tiddly music and the operettas represent that, and I enjoy it. I like all of that. It's just not music I can listen to. I mean, the operetta I can, but the Tiddlywink, I just can't listen to it a lot. I find it not as interesting.
Got it.
All right, thanks, Andrew.
Thanks.
All right, let's turn to our super chats. We got a few. This is good. Let's see. Liam, $50. Liam, thank you for the $50. Liam says, after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the success of Reagan and Thatcher's reforms of our mixed economies, were intellectuals more sympathetic to capitalism? Now they have gone back to unapologetic Marxism, like the nonsense coming out of Stanford. I mean, there were more sympathetic intellectuals to capitalism, or at least to a mixed economy leaning more towards capitalism, but almost everybody during that period was still a mixed economist. But think about how many prominent economists there were in the 1980s and 90s who were free market economists. I mean, there was Milton Friedman, but then I can't remember when Hayek died, but Friedman was still alive. But then, in addition to Friedman, the whole Chicago school at the time was considered a free market school, and there was just a bunch of these economists teaching at Chicago and then teaching at Hoover Institute at Stanford, and they were all over the place. The free markets were dominant. And look, it could be, I'm not that connected right now, that if you look at the economics departments, there's still a lot of free market people, although I have a feeling this declined a little bit. But she was from philosophy. And if you're asking me, were there more people in philosophy and intellectuals of that like who? No. I mean, the Marxists were hiding. They weren't as explicit. They were quieter because their big experiment had obviously failed and they were trying to recalibrate. They kind of knew what we came to know as woke, whether it's post-colonialism and intersectionality and all of that, was just starting to come together during that period of time. But it's not like that period of time suppressed that. It would just come together, and it would later, come to the forefront in the 2000s, or the late 90s and the 2000s. So I don't think, I think that the consensus was Fukuyama. The consensus was what's won and what's good is the mixed economy. Democracy, limited, not unlimited democracy, limited democracy, liberal society, mixed economy, welfare state, regulatory state. Yes, we rebalanced it a little bit with Thatcher and with Reagan, but fundamentally, the mixed economy won, communism died. And if you read Fukuyama, what we're basically saying is idealism is dead, right? There are no ideals. Communism was the last ideal and it failed. And now it's just mixed economy liberalism. It's not an ideal. It's just the kind of messiness that is a liberal democratic society. And I think most intellectuals basically held that during that period of time. And of course, that's better than what happened 10 years later or 20 years later with Marxism coming back, or with the postmodernists coming to the forefront. But there wasn't this idea. And what also was happening, I guess, the most influence that Thatcher and Reagan had was outside Europe and the United States. The influence they really had was in Asia and in Eastern Europe and in places that were starting to get, release the shackles, and they were adopting relatively free markets. But intellectuals in the West didn't take Margaret Thatcher and Reagan's success as capitalism. They took Margaret Thatcher and Reagan's success as, okay, there are times where in a mixed economy, the mixture has to move more towards markets. But there's no principle here, because again, remember, they did not embrace an idealism of capitalism. They rejected all idealism because of the failure of communism. They couldn't imagine an idealism of capitalism. There's no laissez-faire. The only place there were people advocating for laissez-faire really was economics. And there was a lot, and it was big shots. Gary Becker, who won a Nobel Prize, Stiglitz. I mean, it was just not Stiglitz. Not Stiglitz. Stiglitz is a bad guy. Anyway, there were a bunch of economists who were very free market coming out of Chicago. There were Austrians as well, but Chicago was very prominent and well respected. All right. Let's see, Michael, $50 as well. Thank you, Michael. One of the worst things about Trump is that he's ushering in more corporate welfare cronyism while parading it under the ban of capitalism. So we end up with all the failings of statism, with a generation of young people blaming capitalism. Yes, and you can see that. You can see it, that everybody basically accepts that America is a capitalist society, and then all this stuff about corporations and cronyism and all of this is getting blamed on capitalism, and the solution is socialism. Somehow that solves the problem. All the issues, all the problems, all the challenges, cost of living, whatever. Can't buy a house. Why can't you buy a house? Capitalism. Because it's in America, it's capitalism. Never mind that, it's expensive to buy a house pretty much anywhere in the Western world. Everywhere where politicians regulate.
Private equity's buying up all the houses.
Yeah, blame the financiers. So it's never mind that it's everywhere in the world. You get the same phenomena in Spain and in France and in the cities, in the big cities, because there's no building going on because of the same regulations that exist in San Francisco and New York, everywhere else. So it's not an American phenomenon, but capitalism is getting blamed in America for it without any question. So yeah, it's not just Trump. It's that for forever, we have claimed America as capitalist, and it doesn't matter if it's Trump or it's, Trump is a Republican, so he's more associated with capitalism. But Bush was the same way, and to some extent Reagan was the same way. They do all these bad things and bad stuff happens. I mean, it's not that the economy was perfect under Reagan. There were a lot of bad stuff, like the deficit grew dramatically under Reagan. Government debt grew dramatically under Reagan. And then people say, see, this is capitalism. It's incredibly destructive. So this is the problem with the Republicans. They give capitalism a bad name. All right, let's see. Michael, also $50. Thank you. We're seeing the rise of yeehaw socialism. Yeehaw. Rednecks rejecting leave me alone individualism for white Christian socialism, as opposed to the left's multicultural secular socialism. They'll disagree on race, God, but socialism they both embrace. Interesting. I haven't seen the yeehaw socialism, redneck socialism. If you got a video or something, or an article or something, send it to me, Michael. I'm really interested in that. But yeah, I mean, look, what's the alternative? We've tried capitalism. Look what a mess we've got us into, and it's not like the rednecks know any more than the educated socialists. So the alternative is more state control. It's more government, and we call that socialism. That's what it is. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that the left and the right are uniting under a banner under a banner of economic interventionism. The question is really, how are they going to, what's going to happen to the social issues, the race, the God, the transgender, whatever, all these other things? Because to have some kind of authoritarian government, we're going to have an overwhelming majority of people who agree on some of those things. How that's all going to come together is going to be really interesting. All right, let's do a couple more of these, and then we'll go back to our panel. Arthur, is the academic establishment afraid of Ayn Rand? Do they see signs of fear their students will discover her, and their their facade will be exposed and undone? I don't know. I don't think they are aware enough of Ayn Rand to think that. I don't think that they take us seriously enough to think that. I don't think academics are really afraid of Ayn Rand. They don't like that their students read her. They don't like that the students get excited by her. But I don't think that comes from a point of they're afraid of, she's going to take over the world. I don't think they take her seriously enough to be afraid of her in that sense. They're afraid that she'll impact their students, and they view in a very negative light because of these really bad ideas that she promotes and things like that. But not, I don't think they have an awareness of kind of what Ayn Rand represents, the challenge Ayn Rand represents philosophically. Michael, another $50. Thank you, Michael. Very generous today, as always. All right, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Michael says this consensus was the mixed economy was a good thing to promote, preserve throughout the world. That has changed. The free element of a mixed economy, they want gone. Being a fascist or Marxist is becoming trendy. Yes, I think that's right. But remember, right? It's trendy at the margins. It's still not mainstream. The socialist, Democratic Socialist of America is winning primaries. They haven't yet won any national election or any even statewide election. They're winning primaries. It's not clear that that's what people want. And on the right, kind of JD Vance hasn't won yet. There's still people who hold out for American individualism, or at least some version of it. So I wouldn't say it's all over yet. I don't think it's the case that it's completely converted. But yes, at the margin, the people who are kind of shaping the radical ideas of definitely people who are either on the socialist or on the statist side of statist left, statist right, either way. Absolutely. All right, let's take one more from here. Liam, the US government now owns stakes in 30 companies. Is this type of cronyism common in Europe or Japan? Can we survive long enough for objectivism to be taken seriously? I don't know. I don't think it's common in Japan. Japan has other ways in which the government controls industry. It always has. So Japan doesn't, I don't think the Japanese government has equity stakes in companies, but the banks do, and the Japanese government has a lot of say in what the banks do. So the Japanese government has more control over business in Japan than the American government has over business in America. It's just they don't take equity positions. I don't know in Europe. I think Europe goes in and out of phases where they nationalize and then they privatize, and they nationalize and they privatize. And my guess is different countries in Europe are different. I don't know that any government takes equity positions, other than Norway has the huge investment fund that is generated from its revenues from its oil that it uses to take positions in companies all over the world, including in Norway. But I don't think the government does it directly. They do nationalize much more than we do in the United States, so they're much more likely to nationalize an industry. can we survive? Can we survive long enough for objectivism to be taken seriously? I don't know. I think so, but I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. Also, what does it mean to survive? Survive how? Does civilization survive? You know, I think so. I hope so, but I don't. I'm not certain. I'm not certain that it will, and certainly not in its current form or in the West. It might survive in other places before it survives in the West, just because I think the West is so weak right now, so weak. All right, let's go back to our panel. Jennifer.
Yesterday, or I don't know if it was yesterday, but you talked about how, Christianity, of course, is all in sacrifice and everything. But then you mentioned something about like the Aztecs and ancient peoples like that did sacrifice too. They threw babies off cliffs and things.
Yep.
And do you have any idea like why humans think that's a good idea? I mean, do they see it as sort of some kind of perverted trade, where if they give you their baby, that God will make the crops grow or something? Or where do you think that comes from?
I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, the witch doctor basically, in order for God to have continuous power over us, there has to be something that that he demands from us, right? He has to be demanding, right? And the witch doctor has to be able to convey to us something that God wants us to do. Otherwise, what power does the witch doctor have? So the witch doctor is the guy inventing the whole thing and making the whole thing up. But think about it. I mean, in the Jewish religion, right, sacrifice is something you're supposed to do on a regular basis to God in the Bible. But you're not supposed to. After Abraham asks Abraham to kill Jacob, to sacrifice Jacob to him, and Abraham says yes, but God stops him, right? That stopping Abraham from killing Jacob is supposed to end human sacrifice.
Isn't it Isaac?
Isaac, sorry, Isaac. Isaac or Jacob? I don't know. Anyway, one of them. Now you've got me confused. All right, somebody Google.
I have no idea.
But
And
it's
for the Aztecs, I think it was the sun god needed sacrifices to continue raising the sun. So that was the
Yeah.
good versus evil
Yeah, but-
aspect of it.
But that, of course, is the invention of the witch doctor. So there's always something. But the Jews eliminate, a human sacrifice, and they sacrifice animals. And the idea of sacrificing an animal is not that God eats the animal or anything like that. It's you're willing to give up something for him. You're willing to give up stuff for him. It shows your obedience. It shows your submission. So it's not about getting anything specific from the God, although again, the witch doctor will tell you the only reason the sun comes up is because of your sacrifices. It's to prove to the God that you are willing to give stuff up. It's the essence of altruism, right? It's you have to give stuff up to show your commitment to the God. And what can be bigger in terms of giving stuff up than your children, right? That's the biggest thing, and that's why your human sacrifice, a human being is the biggest sacrifice you can make. So lots of ancient civilizations had human sacrifices because that was the way they thought they could convey their seriousness to the God. And again, according to the Bible, the whole story of Isaac or Jacob or Isaac is meant to symbolize the end of human sacrifice. You can sacrifice other things to show me how much you care about me. I just asked super chats.
Thank you.
Len.
So, Yaron, I don't know if you heard the story of this Porter Airlines flight that was canceled because the toddler 2-year-old wouldn't sit in the seat with the belt.
I hadn't, no. No.
Yeah, so basically, very quickly, it was a flight from Victoria to Toronto, and it was late night, and they could not supposedly get this toddler to stay in his seat, so they ended up having to go back to the gate to take the people off. And by that time, then basically they ran the curfew,
Yep.
so they had to cancel the flight.
Yep.
And I mean, I can tell you myself what my approach would have been. Like, I don't believe in hitting kids and stuff, but I would have grabbed the kid, put him in the seat, put the belt on, and just held the belt.
Yeah.
Right? Like it would have
Yeah.
been like, hey, there's no discussion here, right?
Yeah.
Like you can try to convince kids in other circumstances, but this doesn't work. But
Yep.
what would you have done? Like,
Yeah, I
to
would
me,
have done the same thing. I mean,
if I was a different passenger in that flight, I would have been super pissed.
yeah.
To
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you put him in the seat and you tie him up and that's
yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
You constrain him. So
yeah,
yeah, force is legit on little kids.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But I have to say though, like I saw some videos about it and read comments and stuff, and some of the comments though, like people are just like, well, like basically beat the crap out of the kid, right? It's like, come on,
That's
like,
ridiculous.
and
Yeah.
it's a microcosm of our culture, right? Like, I mean, okay, I wasn't there, I didn't see it, I didn't see video
Yeah.
of the incident, but I suspect it was parents that just weren't able to control their kid.
Yes.
Like that's one end of the
Yes.
spectrum, and the other end you got people it's just like, oh, beat the crap out of the kid. Like, okay,
Or bring a tranquilizer onto the plane with you.
yeah, or give him a whiskey or something,
Yeah, exactly. Knock him out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to travel with a toddler,
yeah,
you're taking on the responsibility of figuring out a way to get them to behave.
yeah,
And it's better that they yell throughout the flight or the takeoff at least,
yeah,
than the flight get canceled. So
yeah, yeah,
so just do it, even if they're going to yell.
yeah, yeah.
And
I know it
you
was
just
just
you just hold on to them. I mean, it's not
yeah.
that hard to hold a 2-year-old and
I
just pin him to the chair and put the seatbelt on and keep
yeah,
them pinned down. That's it.
yeah, yeah. Like I have never met a 2-year-old I think that could beat me up. Like, okay, like I'm not a physical
Yeah,
guy, but
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
generally I think I can manage a 2-year-old, and presumably the parents are a lot younger than me.
And
I mean, they should be able to do that.
and we flew with our two sons long flights. I mean, really long
Yeah,
flights.
yeah,
I mean, my wife did it alone on a couple of occasions. I mean, a flight from Israel to South Africa and to Israel, and I
yeah,
mean, these are like 12-hour flights.
yeah,
And, it was really hard, but she
yeah.
managed. And she so and my kids I don't think were particularly easy. So and she managed, right? So
Right.
there are ways to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think yes. I think it's
Yeah.
the parents who are being way too lenient,
Yeah.
and yeah, the kid's not feeling the seatbelt right now, so maybe we
Yeah.
should force him to wear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, should they be liable for the financial cost? Because as far as I understand, like the airline didn't pay for any hotels, and I don't blame the airline. Like they had no choice in this. I
Yeah.
mean, the pilots and the crew would have been in trouble if they hadn't if they had taken
I
off.
don't know what the agreement is between the airline and the passengers, but I
Just
don't
from
know
a
if they're
civil,
liable, but I would be pissed off and I'd probably bother flying on my airline for life.
yeah. But between like, is there like in a proper society? Depending what the contract says, of
Yeah.
course, but is there a civil liability to other passengers for this?
I don't know. I mean, you'd have to know more about what exactly happened and
Yeah,
how negligent were they. I think we sue each other too much anyway.
yeah,
So yeah, shit happens. Like bad stuff happens, and you just gotta,
yeah,
to some extent, you just gotta accept it. But I mean, just the lawsuit would be more expensive than any
yeah,
reward you might get out of it. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
I doubt it.
But then what is the mechanism to say, to have people take responsibility, basically?
Well, I think the airline should ban these people from ever flying the airline.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
yeah,
I mean, it's cost the airline a lot of money to
yeah.
reschedule all these people and refly them and do all that, and these people should never fly again.
And would it be legitimate for other airlines to say, well, hold on, I
Sure,
don't want these people in my
sure,
plane because
sure.
obviously they've demonstrated that,
Yeah. I mean, they might not want a lifetime ban, but certainly
Yeah.
for a while, yeah.
At least you say, okay, well, until your
With
kids
the
are
kid,
25 or
can't
something,
fly
no
with the
way you can
kid,
travel. Yeah, because
drive,
yeah, because your teenagers are probably going to be nightmares too. So
no kidding.
yeah. Okay,
Could be
thanks.
like a time,
Thanks so much. What's that?
Sorry.
there could be like a time limit if you don't sit down within 10 minutes of boarding that you get kicked off.
Yeah.
They
Yeah, that's the
waited
other
too
thing. I
long.
don't know why they waited
Yeah,
until
why'd they wait?
they
No,
got
no,
away
no,
from the
no,
gate.
no. So what happened was that I think it was like only 10, 15 minutes, but they had to go back to the gate. They had
Yeah,
to
but why
deplane these
was he
people.
not buckled in at the gate?
I think they started taxing, which happens, right? I
Yeah,
mean, sometimes
yeah,
people are up at the washroom, like
yeah, I
you want
guess
to
so.
get going, but people
Yeah.
will sit down, and then they had to get the baggage off,
Yep.
and then they ran up against the curfew for the airport. I mean, I blame the airport here too a little bit. Like, okay, can we have a little bit of judgment call that says, okay, maybe we can take off 5 minutes past the curfew?
Yeah, the curfews are questionable,
They're
but yeah.
yeah, they're like fascist kind of curfews, right? It's a government run entity, and they just have their rules, and they don't pay any
Of course.
judgment. So, like to me, it's the parents and the airport. It's some small fault for the airport. No,
I
no
don't know.
fault.
I mean, I have to say, I live near an airport in Puerto Rico, and if the plane is like, they're not supposed to fly before 8, I think, or 7 or something.
Right.
And if it's early, I'm like, what the hell? I'm not happy with the noise of them flying
Yeah.
over my home. So
Yeah.
so I understand why they stick to the curfew, because otherwise
Yeah.
people get very upset at them.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that you could say, like, okay, we got to have some judgment that says, all right, you're 10 minutes
Yep.
past. There's a
Yep.
legitimate reason. Let people know what the reason was. And I think most people would understand and
Yep.
just don't make it a common practice. And
Yeah, I think that's right.
but it's government and judgment don't go together. So
No.
yeah.
No. All right, Jacob.
So this may be controversial, but defending the military complex on munition supply. So I think it's definitely could be better, but the point of long range munitions is to degrade the air defense systems. So I think if you do an analysis, it's how many munitions do we need in stock for long range munitions to degrade their anti-air defense systems. So yes, you probably should have mothballed a few production lines. That way you could ramp up if needed. But if you can't take out their anti-air defense systems within the first 3 days, then that strategy is broken. I think that's kind of a
Yeah,
good
but that's
strategy.
not how that's not how these long range missiles are being used. Now, maybe that's how they should be used, but the reality is the air defense systems in Iran were taken out even before the war started, because Israel took them out in
Yep.
June of last year. So Iran had no really real air defense systems at all.
Other than the man pads.
But they were using Tomahawks for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And again, it's the problem is the Patriot missiles, which are supposed to knock
yeah.
out their ballistic missiles and the airplanes and stuff like that. Why would you have a limit on that? Don't you realize they've built thousands of these ballistic missiles, and the Chinese have a lot more than that? But here's the other problem. There's no reason to defend the military-industrial complex. Let's be very
Yep.
clear. They're awful. They're really, really bad.
More
And
the military strategy of the strategy
no, but
of
its
long range
strategy
munitions.
is
And
bad.
then
That's true. But more than that, but in addition to that, look, the reality is that the way these military contractors work is that they fragment manufacturing into hundreds of little shops,
Yep.
so that they can have a facility in every single frigging district of Congress, so that every member of Congress is going to be beholden to them in one way or another. This is classic cronyism. This is how it works.
Yep.
And that's what happens. So that, when you want to build something, you have to build it in this fragmented, ridiculous system. And it's not just missiles. They can't build a submarine. They can't build an aircraft carrier. They can't build an F-35 without going over budget by, so many hundreds of percent. They can't build anything on budget. The better companies are the entrepreneurial new companies that are basically not playing this political game yet, although when they go big, they might, and are much more entrepreneurial and can build stuff.
Yeah, I was more talking, I spoke. It was the strategy of only having, say, 2,000, 3,000 attackums or tomahawks, because that should be your initial salvo in order to suppress. And
Yeah,
then
but
that's when you put the JDAM. So maybe it's a Trump / political
they,
override of what the strategy should have been.
yeah, I mean, you need to win the war. If you don't win the war and you drag it on for months, then of course. But you can't have a situation where you have 2,000 tomahawks, and to make another one, it takes 3 years.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. We in World War II, you built, what was it? I can't remember how many planes every single day, right? So it was, I mean, it's not, the military industrial complex is way, way, way too slow at being able to replenish whatever it is that, the fact that they ran out doesn't worry me. It's the fact that they can't replenish it, which is
Yep.
ridiculous.
Yeah, and then
the
on that,
Patriots are more important in this context than the tomahawks.
yeah, and then on that for regarding Taiwan and China, it's a different missile supply for offensive attacks. So you'd have harpoons rather than tomahawks. So we're still safe there. And I think it's if I was a planer in China, I'd be like, God damn, they are so effective at targeting and at taking out targets when needed. And they still have all their harpoons. So any attack we'd have our boats sunk.
But they don't have Patriots, and they don't have air defense systems. So they could take down our aircraft carriers, they could take down our ships in sea, they could bomb Taiwan with no limitations. If they have enough ballistic missiles, we cannot do anything about it. So don't put any ships in the sea. Just start sending ballistic missiles into Taiwan. Eat up all the Patriots before you even put any ships into sea. I mean, the harpoons are useless against a ballistic missile.
Yeah, but they would just go underground. I mean, it's bad, and I would never want it. But I would say it's not critical.
Look at what's happening in Ukraine, and the Chinese have a lot more and a lot more powerful and a lot more missiles than the Russians do. So no, I mean, if I were Chinese, I would say now's the time. There's no aircraft carrier in the Pacific right now. The Americans don't have a strategy. We don't have the quantity of drones. They could take out our Navy just with drone swarms. We still don't have an anti-drone strategy. They could basically sink our Navy. And yes, we'd have harpoons and we could sink their Navy, but they just have a much bigger Navy, and ultimately they'll keep coming. They can build boats really, really fast. We can't build anything.
Yep, I know it's not great, but I'm not, at least maybe it's just blind optimism. I hope it doesn't happen.
I hope it doesn't happen too. I don't think it will, because I think the Chinese are afraid of failure. They really are scared.
Hey, Yaron, just related to this question, and I know you've brought this up a few times, but is he a Russian plant? Because it just seems like everything you're doing would be like it doesn't seem that hard. Like what the hell?
He's not smart.
No, I know, but
he isn't. He's not smart, and he doesn't really care. And he's also a coward. So if you add those things up, he's afraid of failure. The big thing with Iran was when they shot down the pilot.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to get the pilot, and it scared the bejesus out of him. And he backed right after that is when he announced a ceasefire MOU and all of that. So he is really afraid of taking casualties. He is not smart. But look, the problems with the military industrial complex are problems that go back decades.
Yeah.
They're not new. This is the problem. There is the problem with the American political system, where because Congress is districts, you have to get all of them. You spread out how you So it's not easy to fix, because it's not one person. If it was just Trump, you'd say okay. And then Hegseth. I mean, who's Hegseth? He's a nobody and a nothing. So you've got a bunch of nobody and nothings I mean, for that matter, who is Rubio? I mean, he's more articulate than the rest of them, but do we know that he is a good strategist and he can think? And I have no idea. I mean, he's just a senator. I've never been impressed by anybody in the Senate.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, okay, but would you give him would you give this administration any credit that to whatever extent they are sort of trying to bring in Silicon Valley kind of approach to in whatever small way they're doing it or anything?
I mean, I
Like
don't know enough of what's going on. It
yeah,
seems like it, but on the other hand, we just saw them shut down this brigade of
yeah,
this drone
yeah,
brigade. So I don't know
yeah,
what's going on there.
yeah.
So yes, that was already starting because I've read a number of books about this. That was already starting under Obama,
Okay.
and Palantir was already under Obama, and then Bush, and then Trump won, and then Biden didn't back off of that. So they were bringing on Silicon Valley into the Defense Department.
Okay. So
Starting really the defense secretary, I forget his name. There was a particular defense secretary under Obama. They started something called Unit X, which was this unit that was supposed to bring tech into the military and was supposed to coordinate efforts with Silicon Valley. And it went up and down because there was a lot of
yeah.
resistance in the Pentagon, and the Pentagon didn't like it. But I don't think it's unique to Trump too.
So I guess the only credit would be is that he hasn't shut it down, but
Yeah,
it's probably further down the hierarchy that this being managed and it doesn't get his attention kind of thing from
definitely
what
further down the hierarchy.
yeah,
It's not Hegseth and it's not Trump.
yeah, yeah. It's not those immediate
Yeah,
sycophants that are looking
yeah. I
for
mean,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
So
It's
and let's hope that they know what they're doing.
uh,
I've read a number of
obviously
books
not.
now about the attempts to bring technology into the military, and it doesn't. I'm not optimistic,
Yeah.
about it because there's so much resistance by the status quo.
So I guess the only thing that could save us is that our enemies would be even worse at it,
Oh
I
yeah,
hope.
yeah. That's what's saving us. China.
Yeah.
The reason China is not invading Taiwan is that China's weak, and China's in more trouble than we are. And Xi can't afford failure because the economy in China is so bad right now. He's
Yeah.
on thin ice already. If he invades Taiwan and fails, or the casualty numbers are huge, he will suffer. So, and he's fired most of his military commanders, and so they're not strong. And Russia's a complete basket case. So yeah, what saves us is the weakness of our enemies.
Okay. Well, hopefully that doesn't change for a while because
Yeah, I hope
we're in
so.
trouble. Thank
Andrew.
you.
I was rolling my eyes hard the other day when you were covering the suits against social media for addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I heard the term infinite scrolling.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, okay.
That's what you were doing with Candace.
Yeah, well,
Infinite
that is
scrolling.
what I was doing totally. So, but there's no hypocrisy because I would never join such a suit and do not support that kind of
I know.
liability. However, it's so I don't know what you would call that in objectivist terminology. Just like it's bogus. Like infinite scrolling, that's not what it is because you actually have to take your finger and
Yep.
scroll.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's not infinite. It is actually
takes a choice.
activated by the user.
It takes choice. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but one thing I did get like from this social media addiction that I've been suffering from is it does give you a little bit of a sense for the culture.
Yep.
Like you get especially if it gives you a big diversity of videos like from different corners of the world,
Yep.
not the world, mostly America or, the world. But one of the positive things, there's a lot of negative you could take from it. And I'm not going to highlight that because everybody does. But one of the positives is there's a lot of creativity out there. There's a lot of it. You may say it's superficial. Some of it is tawdry. Some of it, it's not like on the level that, certainly like an objectivist society would produce in terms of content. But you do get a sense for like, first of all, a lot of it's coming from America or emanating from America to other countries, you know, when you see international content and stuff like that, but it's emanating from America originally. And there's a lot of individuality that comes through. There's a lot of creativity. There's, you know, like you still get this sense where it's like, I can't imagine a dictatorship here because people are so big on the value of expressing themselves and being opinionated and but like not even just not in political ways. Like I'm not really even talking about politically, I'm talking about artistically. And you know, like how do you factor that into kind of your view of the culture, of the state of the culture?
I mean, I'll just say that was also true in Weimar Germany. So if you look at the 1930s in Germany, there was a huge avant-garde expression, and it was very similar in some senses to the world today. There was a lot of hedonism. There was a lot of, but a lot of kind of self-expression, creativity, you could call it, going on, and that disappeared very quickly when kind of the authoritarians came to power and demanded it. But look, you know, I look at there's also a lot of knowledge that is available out there. There's a lot of good stuff, good knowledge. There are a lot of doctors doing stuff on medicine. There's a lot of exercise stuff on exercise. There's a lot of scientists explaining science. And that to me is the most interesting thing about the internet and YouTube and all these, you know, doom scrolling, if you will, all this scrolling is there's a lot of knowledge. I mean, legit knowledge that is being conveyed online every single day. And that means that there are people consuming real knowledge. And that means that things are not as bad as maybe sometimes we think they are. It also is global. So this knowledge gets to every corner of the world, and there are people all over the world listening and engaging with this knowledge. And I think that should lead us to be more optimistic about the world. People know more. Yes, they're also more susceptible to conspiracy theories, but that's what makes the news. I think the vast majority that's not conspiratorial also has the potential, at least, to know more than ever before, because it's so easily accessible to them in short videos all over, you know, all over the internet. So
Yeah, on that, I basically half of my engineering degree was passed because of random guys in India that would put up lectures on specific problems that I would have in Thermo 2 or whatever, where you're just like, here's this issue. And then you find a random guy in India with 500 views on the account, and then it has the solution and they walk through it. Whether that's still true with ChatGPT, I don't know, but that was my use case back like 10 years ago.
yeah, and I'm sure it's still true. And now you just got a shortcut, which is ChatGPT, which finds that stuff and learns from it. So yeah, I mean, but the expressiveness, it's good that it's there, but I worry that it can go away because again, I think it existed in Weimar Germany.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's go to super chat. Nav Javage, I'll go with them. An idiot in motion goes farther than a genius at rest. True. That is true. Just mechanically, that's true. Nav Javage, I'll go with them. Do you like Shanghai more than Hong Kong? What is the coolest, most impressive city in China? I think I do like, I mean, there's a sense in which I like, I mean, there's a sense in which I like Shanghai more than Hong Kong. It's just more impressive. The skyscrapers are more impressive. The lights are more impressive. It's kind of Hong Kong on steroids. So yes, I think, but I prefer Hong Kong because they speak English and it was at least more civilized and more Western. But Shanghai is amazing. It's truly a stunning, visually a stunning place. And you know, I think has gotten even more amazing over the last few years. Is it the most impressive city in China? I think so. I think it's Shanghai. Although, you know, I haven't been to a lot of the other cities. Guangzhou is really impressive. Huang Huang something. Just south of Shanghai, there's a city, and it has some of the most interesting, unusual architecture you'll find anywhere, and that's impressive. Guangzhou, I think it's called Guangzhou. That's just south of Shanghai. I don't like Beijing for a lot of reasons. And I haven't been to that many other cities. Xi'an was not that impressive. It's Guangzhou, and Shanghai, I think, are the most impressive of those. Michael is on a buying spree, $100. Thank you, Michael. I do notice in the comments section that any misbehavior of a child in public, most of the comments call for severely beating them. Really? Does this show the hate and lack of any benevolence in the culture? I mean, at least it shows a lack of benevolence and hate among the people in the comment section. I don't know how prevalent this is in the culture. I don't get a sense that there's a lot of people out there beating kids up. So I don't think it's a significant number of people. People wishing to impose misery and destruction on complete strangers. But it's kids, it's not even strangers. I do think there's also this people who would never beat a kid up, but hide behind the anonymity of a comment section under a video, say stuff that they would never say in person, right? Do stuff, claim they want to do stuff that they would never actually do. One of the things you find online is behavior you would never see in public. People would resist it. People are willing to engage in it in online because they hide behind a mask. They're the kind of tough guy they wish they were, and they're not really, or they just use it as an expression of their anger. But when it really came down to a kid, they wouldn't touch them. So that's my sense. I wouldn't take it as a diagnosis of the culture as a whole. I would definitely take it as a diagnosis of people online and the kind of people and what they do in online chats. Like how many people on the plane said beat the kid up in person or came ready to beat him up? I doubt it. But it's easy for people after the fact, online, anonymously, to talk about beating up children. So I don't think the culture is quite that bad, but it's not a good thing that there are people like that out there in the world. Arthur, yesterday you said, quote, a little private property protection is not enough for continued economic growth and innovation. But previously you've said a little bit of freedom goes a long way. Which is it? Well, it depends what a little means. And it depends what a long way means. So a little bit of freedom in a poor country like China and done in the right way. That is, it wasn't really a little bit of freedom. It was a lot of freedom in a particular context, in a particular situation, a particular geography, and in the context of economic freedom. It went a long way. And if you think about it, they didn't even have property rights. There are no property rights in China. They didn't have property rights at the time. They had pseudo property rights, and even that went a long way. But then take take Germany, which has a lot of property rights and some pretty robust property rights, and it has well-functioning markets, and it has all this stuff. I mean, it's not going to lead to much. You're not going to get a lot of innovation because they're ready at a point where to get to the next point, you need a lot more freedom. That is, you need to free up those last pieces. You need to really have property rights. So it really depends on where you are in the cycle. You can also look at countries. So when you're poor and starting out, a little bit of property rights and a little bit of freedom go a long way. The more advanced you become, the less that holds. And look at China. China's in trouble today. It's not growing fast today. And that freedom that they have is running out in terms of playing out in terms of economic freedom, because in terms of economic growth, because the government is screwing it up and messing with it. So innovation is declining and economic growth is declining. So it's all contextual. How much freedom you need at any given point in time. So, for example, we could take away 60% of all the economic freedom we have in America. We'll still have some economic freedom, but what would be the result? It will be collapse. It'll be collapse. It won't be economic growth. Economic growth for an advanced economy like America requires more economic freedom than economic growth in China or in a poor country. Shahzbot, would you move to the moon if a colony was established there? No. I don't find anything appealing about the moon. All the things I like to do, are they going to have Michelin star restaurants? You're going to be able to, are they going to have, good gyms? Are they going to have, how's the internet on the moon? And what's communication down to Earth? I might
You'd be
go
able to
visit,
lift a
but
lot
I'm not
more.
gonna. What's that?
You'd be able to lift a lot more in the gym.
That's true. That's true. But that's cheating. Doesn't count. James, it's always seize the means of production, never build the means of production. It is a battle for destruction. Yes, it's breaking stuff, redistributing stuff, taking stuff is much, much easier than building stuff, creating stuff, making stuff. And the statists, it's always about the negative, the taking, the destroying. Clark, thought on the quality of your audience. Did you ever think you would have such a solid, consistent following, or did you think it would be much larger by now? So yeah, I think I have a really high quality, dedicated, committed audience, and it's hard for me to say how big it really is, in a sense of how many people are really committed, but it's something it's a few thousand. I did think it would grow more. I did think it would be larger by now. That is, it hasn't really grown that much. So even if my subscribers have grown, the views of my live videos have not grown that much. My podcast has not grown that much. So it's still somewhere around 5,000 people listen to a lot, right? Listen to almost every live show. It might not be the same 5,000. So maybe there's 20,000 people out there that listen regularly to the Yaron Brook Show. But it's been like that for a long time, I think. That's my sense, at least. So I would have thought it would have grown more by now. But in terms of quality, I think it's great. In terms of size, it's disappointing.
How do you think of it, Yaron, like in conjunction or juxtaposition with the respect you have as an intellectual? Like, you are looked to by Peterson and academies, and have been on a lot of top shows, and what do you like? How do you kind of conceptualize that versus maybe less in terms of public popularity than you would like?
Well, I mean, here's the challenge is so I guess the question is, so what? They respect me. What does that give me ultimately, right?
Does it mean that you're appealing though to the quality? Like, is it higher quality people who are responding? Like, you don't have to necessarily be. You do need some popularity, but
they're not changing in any way. That is, they're responding. Yeah, Yaron's an interesting guy. Yeah, Yaron's a guy you can have a conversation with. Or those are interesting points. But it doesn't, I mean, at the end of the day, what matters is influence. And am I having an influence on Jordan Peterson? No, I'm having an influence on Jordan Peterson's people. So I'm happy for that. And that ultimately, I think that will grow my audience, right? So I've done 5 courses live on Jordan Peterson. We got 2 more coming. Where are the tens of thousands of people in the Yaron Brook Show who came from the Jordan Peterson universe, right? Why haven't they? Where are they? I don't see them. So it's disappointing in that sense. So I've been on Lex Friedman, I've been on all these things, I've been on all the shows. Where are the hundreds of thousands of people who watch those things? They've all been watched by hundreds of thousands of people, millions maybe. Why have I convinced only a handful? So that's it, and quantity matters, size matters. The size of audience matters. The number of people you influence directly matters. In a sense, there's a sense in which Jordan and all these other people are means to getting larger and larger audiences. Right now, again, I'm getting people from Jordan Peterson. It's not that it's zero. I'm getting people from there, and they're coming here, and some of the people listening right now are probably from there. So it's not zero. It's just, again, it's not growing as fast and as big as I hope it would.
Do they still have chat groups on the lectures, and are there still interesting conversations in those chat groups?
I think so. And actually, they're going to have me with the last two classes I taught for them. They're actually going to have me live stream with students and do like live Q&As with the students. So I'm really looking forward to that, because one of them's on Ayn Rand and one of them's on venture capital and private equity. But it's going to be fun to actually engage with students directly. So we will see. All right, Arthur, do you think it's cool to let people without the ability to be self-sufficient just die out? Not saying it's a moral duty. I mean, it depends. So first of all, I don't know what it means to let people. Who's going to do the letting? If you don't have any moral commitment to help them, is it cool not to help them? No, I don't think it's cool. It depends on your context. It depends on who you are and what you are. So, and I don't think people will die out. I think this idea that people are just going to die, because I think there are enough people that are interested in helping them, family, friends, and charity, that I don't think many people will die out. But me not helping somebody who might die because I don't help them is not cool. There's thousands of kids right now in Africa that I could help and prevent them from dying tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow, but generally, right? And I don't. And I don't consider myself cool because I'm not doing it. Linda, as far as I know, Beethoven's opera Fidelio is the only serious opera with a happy ending. The good prevail. Yeah, and it's an ode to liberty. It's an ode to freedom. I mean, the final thing in Fidelio is they're all singing about freedom and about liberty and about the wonders of freedom and liberty. So it is a happy ending. I mean, the guy who's unjustly jailed is released from jail, heroic, and it's all done heroically by his wife, who managed to free him. I'm trying to think of other happy endings in operas. I mean, at the end of Turandot, which is one of the dumbest operas ever, but the music is unbelievable. The hero, marries the queen, so that is a happy ending, but it has no meaning, right? The opera, sadly, has no meaning in terms of a story. It's a dumb plot. It really is. I just watched it recently. The music is just stunningly beautiful, but this guy falls in love with this cruel woman and risks his life in order to get her, even though she doesn't want him. It's ridiculous. All right, Shazbot. The primitive people of Mintaka 3 had no interest in sacrifice or cruelty until Captain Picard showed his face. Then they wanted to worship him in the hope that he would use his power to bring back their dead. So if you start believing that there is some power out there that can do something, miraculous, and the witch doctor has an incentive to tell you that, then you start thinking, well, how can I please this thing? And maybe you like to eat stuff. So, here's a goat, here's a sheep. Maybe the God likes to eat. Here's a, I want to show you I'm serious. Here's a human being. So yes, you have to believe that there's some ability of this supernatural being that is not communicated to you directly to do amazing things, and that you want to please it in some way. All right, Hopper. Leftists argue in response to the failure of state central planning, quote, a business of central planning. They're trying to argue central planning can be successful while simultaneously claiming capitalism is a failure. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem with Hayek and many of the free market people overly emphasizing the planning aspect of central planning rather than the coercive nature of central planning. What makes central planning bad is not planning. The market is filled with planners. Apple is huge. It's bigger than many countries. And there's a lot of planning going on at Apple. But it's voluntary planning, and there are mechanisms by which it corrects, and it can coerce. It can get rid of its competition. The essential wrong in central planning is its coercive nature. And that's what they don't get. And part of the fault for that is on the free market people who don't emphasize that, but instead talk about planning. Can't plan. Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can plan. We all plan all the time and quite successfully. And big businesses plan all the time quite successfully. Shazbat. Part of the test to become a commanding officer in Star Trek was the willingness to send crew members to their death under dire circumstances. Yes, I mean, that's part of the training, I think, at the end of the day, of any military combat officer. You have to be able to and willing to send people to missions where they will not survive. That's part of the reality of war, sadly. All right, back to our panel. Jennifer.
You know how like a baby is not conceptual, and then at some point you become conceptual. But would you say it's probably like a gradual process? You don't just wake up one day when you're 2.5 and you're conceptual, or maybe it is like that, or we don't know.
Well, it's gradual in the sense that you start forming very simple concepts. So at some point you wake up and you got Che, right? You got it. You got that there's a concept. So in that sense, one day you're conceptual. But then getting one concept doesn't make you conceptual. It's the ability to manipulate those concepts and go to higher abstractions. And that, of course, is gradual. You're not fully conceptual. If you're a boy, probably until you're 21, 22, if you're a girl, maybe 17, 18, because you need that frontal cortex. You need to be able to fully think through issues and ideas.
So is it possible then, since I don't know, this stuff's complicated, they're like a parrot, like the animals that we consider the smartest, like a dolphin or a African gray, are at that very, very low level, or it's hard to tell. I mean,
It's
obviously most
possible. I
animals
mean,
are
some of these experiments with monkeys and so on, it's possible that they have an ability to deal with concrete concepts. It's possible that there's nothing, I think, that makes that impossible. I don't think. I think in
Yeah, I
philosophy.
mean, wouldn't be most animals know, but things like chimps, dolphins, African grays, I'm not sure. That's kind of a area
Yeah.
I'm not sure about some of them.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, but I don't know if we have the tools even to figure that out.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Amlan.
Yeah, sorry. So my question, Yaron, was have you seen this TV series, The Rookie? Have you watched it?
No,
No,
no. It's with
because
what's his
you were
name?
talking.
Who's the
It's
actor?
Nathan Fillion. He's a good
Nathan Fillion.
actor.
I like Nathan Fillion.
Yeah.
I liked him
So
from what do you call a sci-fi series?
Firefly.
Firefly. He was great in Firefly.
Yeah, yeah.
And that
But
was a great
you,
show.
you were talking the other day about that a lot of TV and movies, like the characters, you don't care what happens to them.
Yeah.
And this one is a bit of an exception for that. I
Okay.
actually find it's like a lot of the characters, and not just the lead character, like there's many of the characters you actually kind of you care. Now it's very, there's definitely a kind of a positive spin on police and policing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's got sort of the typical police drama, everything wraps up in an hour kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But like it is a series that we found was interesting. I was just curious to see if you'd seen it.
I mean, I think there were a lot of series like that because it's what appeals to people.
Yeah.
It's ultimately the networks have to fill the channels with lots of stuff that appeals to people. It's the negative stuff tends to be kind of the cult stuff, the stuff that gets people excited, like Breaking Bad and things like that, or The Sopranos. But the majority of shows on television have to be relatable to people to some extent, and so there has to be like cop shows and lawyer shows. There's like the Lincoln Lawyer, which is
Yeah.
there's a bunch of these shows
Yeah.
where the characters, are basically positive. They're good guys. I mean, the Lincoln, all the people associated with the lawyer are
Yeah.
good people.
Yeah, they're interesting
are
characters,
likable.
and yeah. So then why did you say the other day? Because it was in one of your shows you said that almost all of the stuff being produced didn't have that.
Well, because I think it's anything that's a little deeper, a little bit more complex, a little bit better written, right? With the bigger shows, the big stuff is almost all
Okay.
dark, right? Where the money really is, if you think about the amount of money that goes into Game of Thrones or the amount of money that went into Breaking Bad or the kind of, and then the kind of cultural impact those things had, they had much bigger impact than The Rookie, right?
Or would you say, well, okay, I mean, take Game of Thrones as an example then, because I mean, there were characters in there that you could say, hey, I care about what happens to these characters. I can cheer on certain characters, and others I want them to get, the death
No,
that they
but
usually
but the
got.
show killed a lot of those characters, right? So the show didn't care about what you wanted. It knocked them off, and it took them in directions that you wouldn't have taken them into. And its general attitude was, they're no real heroes. I mean, maybe Jon Snow and the little girl, I forget her name.
Arya, yeah.
Yeah, but even Arya is not a kind of person you want to become. I mean, she's this dead, emotionally dead killer inside, and she's very capable, so you admire that. I mean, Jon Snow is the only human hero in the show, and he's suffering. He has to kill the woman he loves, who turns out to be his half sister or something. I mean, they won't let you alone. They have to
Yeah.
twist it and distort it and destroy it in one way or another. So he has to be miserable at the end of the show. And think about who they appoint as to the Iron Throne. They appoint the cripple guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but you have I mean, even Arya though, I mean, her ending was like, okay, like she's got a positive, she wants to go explore the world,
Arya is the most positive character
heroic.
there, I think, in terms of
Yeah.
her future. Jon Snow's too brooding and too
Yeah.
depressed at
But
that
but
point.
what was the name of the character played by the short the short guy? I mean, he was kind of a
He's a horrible
Tyrion?
human being. He's
yeah,
smart and he's
but at the same
clever.
time, he was kind of like, I mean, he didn't seem evil. I mean, he wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't as evil, and he came from
Yeah.
such an evil family. Sure, I mean that's what keeps Game of Thrones going forward. But if you think about the first season, what's his name? Stark is the good guy, and you're rooting for him and everything. They chop his head off. You know, think about how many bad people there are in the series. Look, I enjoyed it. I watched it. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. It was fun and incredibly dramatic, and there was scenes and themes, even whole themes that were very, very good. There was a whole theme about religion and politics, and that was very, very good. And
Yeah.
I loved what's her name, the blonde, the mother of dragons. I mean, she had the best scenes in the whole thing.
Yeah.
When she kills her enemies and slaughters every. I mean, I think it's great.
They made her conflicted too, though.
Yeah, of course, and they had to destroy her in the end. But she was a power luster in there.
Oh,
You went on mute, Yaron. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
hear.
yeah. I can't hear him.
I can't hear you either.
Oh, we can do a mutiny.
Somebody's got to take over here.
You're back.
Everything's
Oh,
working
wait.
here.
Yeah, now you're back. Now
I think you're
I'm
back.
back.
Yeah,
That
you're
was
back.
weird. All right. Yeah, she was conflicted. Of course, she was conflicted. She's a power luster who wants the Iron Throne and willing to pay whatever cost, kill whoever needs to be killed in order to get the Iron Throne. She has some conception of freedom and liberty,
Mhm.
but it's not real. I mean, she wants to free the slaves, but beyond that, she has no conception of freedom and liberty. It's all about force. It's all about power. It's all about power lust. The whole series theme is power lust and physical force. And I mean, that's fine. It was a fun show, but it's not inspiring in any kind of sense. And the heroes there, it's not a world you would want to be in. It's not a world you would want to live in. It's not people you would actually want to engage in. Even Arya is scary at the end of the day. I mean, it's not there's nothing really positive about that universe.
I mean, I looked at it.
It
as a
does
good-
show the
it's a good thing. Like, I
1220
don't want to go back to 1692 because absent dragons and stuff, that's what it was.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's the thing. Imagine a heroic show that actually presented heroes fighting for something meaningful. I mean, meaningful in our world, in a real world, but something meaningful. Here, it's just power. But imagine, or imagine even imagine putting it in a fictitious 1693 where somebody has discovered the power of reason or the power of freedom or
Mhm.
whatever, and actually
Yeah.
fighting for something of meaning rather than just power for the sake of power. And there have
Yeah,
been science fiction that is better in the sense of having more meaning behind it. At the end of the day, Game of Thrones had no meaning. It was fun, it was exciting, but it didn't add up to anything at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think most of these shows don't. And when it does add up to something, it's pretty malevolent, not benevolent. Jacob?
Question for San Fran and LA. So I've had to skip the last two OCONs, or two of them that I've signed up for because of work. How would I, if there's any objectivist events or anything there, what's your recommendation on who to follow or any interesting events now that I'm out on the West Coast?
Oh, in terms of objectivists in those locations.
Or any intellectual events or anything there, because I was really looking forward to OCON, but then had work trips both
Yeah.
times and had to
I mean,
cancel.
I would try to go to the Austin conference in September. But I don't know of stuff going on in California. You might want to just look for objectivist groups in California and see what comes up if you Google that. I don't know.
Okay, I'll do that. And then two side things for people that want to donate to the show and have time. So we've bought like 8 gallons of paint, paintbrushes, shovels for the backyard because they left it in work in a bad place and had a lot of work to do. So you can use Rakuten and then get cash back to PayPal. Then you can PayPal the show if you're doing some home improvements or different things. So
Cool.
it's only like 1% to 4%, but if you spend a lot of money and you get value from the show, then I'd recommend people do that.
That's great. Thanks, Jacob. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Andrew.
Give us a little insight into your journey or your stay, because this is like your yearly August sojourn, right? Like where are you?
August, September. Yeah.
Can you tell us like where you are and like how it's going and how it compares to your previous trips? Like how do you like it?
Yeah. So this is the third year. We basically go for 2 months to Europe. This year has been, what happened to Andrew? I'll wait for Andrew to come back, I guess. All right. Let me do the super chats, and then if Andrew comes back, I'll complete my answer. Neil says, Connie rejected Trump's trade offer. I don't even know what the trade offer was. I don't know if to say good for Connie or he rejected it for the wrong reasons. I have no idea. But yeah, there's a trade war between Canada and the United States now. Hooray! Isn't that going to be fun? Let
Yeah.
the shooting each other in the knee or shooting yourself in the knee in response to other person shooting himself in the knee continue. It's going to be a blast. All right, there's Andrew. Andrew, you disappeared there. Are you back? Andrew? Is Andrew
I
there?
got another call and I hung up on you by accident instead. So
No problem.
at least I got my question out, but I don't know how it's going so far.
Oh, so I said this is the third year we're doing this. We leave August and September in Europe. The first year we spent most of it. God, I can't remember anymore. Most of it in Barcelona, and we really liked that. Yeah, the first year was all in Barcelona, I think. And then last year we decided to split it, and we ended up splitting it between Lisbon and Florence, with a week in between in Naples. And this year we did 10 days in Lisbon, a month in Barcelona again, and then the last 2 weeks are going to be kind of my wife's going to be in Florence and I'm going to be in London and in Tbilisi in Georgia.
What was the thinking behind going to the same place as you've been?
The thinking is we're not here as tourists. We're here to experience life in this other place. We're not running around going to museums and things like that. We go to museums, but it's just like we're living here. And we like Barcelona, for example. Barcelona is just a great place to live.
Yeah.
So
you're looking to become like familiar with a location that you can kind of go back to regularly.
Yeah.
Yearly.
So I think we're going to come back to Barcelona next year again. We're going to spend a little bit more time in Lisbon next year. So we'll probably do Barcelona's a little hot and humid when we came here in mid-August. So we'll probably delay it a little bit and come in late August. And we'll probably spend more time in Lisbon. Lisbon, the weather was perfect. Lisbon's much more like California weather-wise. But it's not as fun and as comfortable to live in. So grocery shopping in Lisbon sucks. So the little daily things kind of, and then restaurants in Lisbon are nowhere near as good as the restaurants in Barcelona. So we like Barcelona because grocery shopping is really easy, the stuff we want. I mean, there are more grocery stores per block in Barcelona than any place I've ever been to in my life. It's unbelievable. And they're nice, they're clean, which is a big deal for us coming from Puerto Rico. And then the restaurants here, we're eating our way through the Michelin Guide. So we're basically, hitting on the food here, Michelin or not Michelin, is just phenomenal. So even average restaurants are just great.
Do you have to book the Michelin restaurants? Like how far in advance do you have to book them?
Unless if there are a few really, really hot restaurants like that everybody's going to that are hard to get. Like for a while, the top restaurant in the world was in Barcelona, Disfrutar, and it was impossible to get. But what I discovered was we'd been twice over the previous years, And you put yourself on the waiting list, and they'll call you up a couple of days before, and you're in, right? Because they get cancellations, or they get openings for other reasons. But the 1-star and 2-star Michelin restaurants, no problem. You can same day you can get a reservation, so it's not a problem at all. So we're going to a lot of Michelin star restaurants, a lot of not Michelin star restaurants, just good restaurants. We now know which ones we like, which ones we don't, so we get into routine. There's also culture, there's art, there's music. We can, my wife went to see a flamenco show the other night while I was doing a show, and then we're going to go see a classical music concert. We're going to go see an opera. There's Saturday night, classical music in different places. There's just a lot of culture here. We like the weather. There's more culture in London. There's more culture in Paris, but the weather's not as nice, and I don't like the French. And my wife doesn't like London. So, Barcelona, I think, is the place for us. We want to test out Milan. So we might go for a week next year to Milan just to see what it's like. Barcelona is also fairly cheap. So we rent an Airbnb here. And it's a tiny little apartment, but it's really reasonably priced. It would be much more expensive elsewhere. So, we're playing with the concept still, but we're basically committed to coming to Europe for August, September, and we're trying to figure out how to best do it to maximize our enjoyment.
Yeah.
And then I have to do these shows. I do these shows. So in Barcelona, I rented an office. So I'm in an office. It's about a 10-minute walk from our Airbnb. And I leave all the equipment here except for my laptop. And but the office costs me. So I have to, figuring out the details. Again, in Barcelona, it's all very convenient and very easy. It's not that convenient and easy in other cities. I also like being near the Mediterranean, which is like my sea. I grew up on the Mediterranean, so I kind of have this irrational emotional response to it.
Yeah. I'm sure it's invigorating to kind of get out of your normal environment. And
I like we like getting out of the normal environment. We like getting, hurricane season is not the best weather in Puerto Rico, and it's just a little stressful because you're watching for hurricanes all the time. We still watch for hurricanes a little bit because our condo is still there. We don't want it to get damaged, but it's not the same. And it's just nice to shake things up and change things up a little bit.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah. I recommend it.
I don't know, you got to be able to pull it off, right?
Yeah, you got to be able to pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's run through these last few super chats. We're almost in 2 hours. Paul, have you heard Beethoven's Opera Fidelio? What do you think of it? I like it. I mean, I don't enjoy it as much as I do Verdi or Puccini. It's harder, but I enjoy it. I like it, and there's certain bits of it. It's not quite as melodic and easy on the ear, if you will, in some way as Verdi, but it's still a great opera. And again, it has a great story. Clark, thoughts on Canary Islands for retirement? I don't know. Canary Islands are really pretty. They're kind of in the middle of nowhere. They're off the coast of Africa. The weather's good. I don't know how much culture and how much other stuff there is there. But yeah, if weather's what you care about and you don't mind being in the middle of nowhere, then yeah, the Canary Islands are pretty nice. Beautiful beaches. I'm sure the food is good. Oyvind says, have you seen the movie Casablanca? And if so, would you share your opinion? Yeah, of course I've seen the movie Casablanca many times. Yeah, it's a great. I love that movie. It's fabulous. There are a number of movies like that of a reluctant hero, a hero that is cynical, starts out cynical, doesn't want to take a stand, but finds a reason, usually a woman, to motivate him to take a stand, to fight for the good. And I think Casablanca is beautifully made. It's beautifully done. I think that I like both lead actors. To Have or Have Not is another movie. To Have or Have Not is another movie with Humphrey Bogart with a very, very similar theme as Casablanca. And it's a really good movie as well. So yes, I think it's beautifully shot. It's well acted, and I like the kind of the plot of how he turns from being a reluctant hero to a committed one. Well, from being a cynic to a reluctant hero to being a committed hero. That's the full arc. Frank, what difference between a strategy and tactic, whether you're in a battle or a boardroom? And investor Victor Niederhoff died. Did you meet him? The difference is the scale, the short-term versus long-term. Tactic is short-term. Tactics are what you do to achieve a strategy. Strategy is broader and longer. Tactic is shorter and narrow. And that's true in the battlefield and in a boardroom. I never met Victor Niederhofer. We exchanged emails, I think. I'm trying to think if I ever talked to him. I don't think we ever talked. He was a huge Ayn Rand fan. I read his obituary in one of the publications, and it mentions his daughter's name is Gold. So clearly an Ayn Rand fan. And he was a legend, and he trained a lot of hedge fund guys who were objectivists. So I know a number of people who became big donors to the Ayn Rand Institute who started their careers with Victor Niederhofer. So while he never contributed to the Ayn Rand Institute, he indirectly by training those people, and they became very wealthy and they contributed. He did. So, yep. I was going to talk about him on one of the future shows. Neo, do you think it's an advantage to have military bases underground like Iran, or is it too risky? I don't know what the risk is. I don't see any risks involved. I think it makes sense if you know you're going to be bombed. If you know, Israel has a lot of structures underground as well, because those Iranian ballistic missiles, they want to make sure it can survive those. And I'm sure the Pentagon has a big part of the Pentagon is underground. So, and maybe the United States should have built its military bases in the Middle East more underground than they are, so that they could survive the ballistic missiles. Robert, the internet is selection bias on steroids. I get a far better idea of the true state of the world from statistics, and I heartily recommend subscribing to Human Progress Doomslayer newsletter. I agree. I am a subscriber, and sometimes the stories I talk about on here on the achievement section are from the Human Progress feed. But the reality is that statistics don't tell you how people are feeling, what people think, and what their vibe is in the culture, and it matters, or what the ideas are in the culture, right? So the fact that we're progressing does not mean we will continue to progress. Enric says many shows create edited shows, write a script, create graphics and AI to explain and edit to essentials. Have you considered doing that? I'm still thinking about what to do with AI and how to do it. I'm not a script writer, but maybe AI can help me write stuff and create scripted shows with images that AI can create. In the past, it was very expensive to create shows like that. Very expensive. Now we'll see how my documentaries in London do. We're 3 weeks away from doing that, so that's kind of exciting. 4 weeks away. 4 weeks away. All right, let's do one quick round with our panel. So, Jennifer?
Done for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Amlan?
Yeah, let me just yeah. So in a in a proper society, what would be kind of legal disclosure requirements? So for example, if you're taping people at your premises, you're selling a house and you have known defects in it, things like that, what would be the kind of the legal requirement, not moral, but legal?
I mean, I think it would be, I think it would be different depending on the circumstances. So recording somebody without their knowledge is probably a violation of their rights, unless there's no expectation of privacy, unless they expect to be recorded or they're out in the public and it doesn't matter, they're yelling in the middle of the street. But certainly recording in a private setting, there's the assumption of privacy.
So like a bank, if you walk into a bank, would you consider that a private setting?
Walk in a bank or somebody in your home. If somebody comes to your home, they're not expecting to be recorded and expecting to. And if you do record them, you should let them know.
Okay.
In terms of what was the other example you gave?
So let's say you're
a
selling a
house.
house. Basically,
Those are
disclose.
a
You sell a
house.
house, a car, anything.
I mean,
you know,
I think it's a combination of you can't lie,
Yeah.
right? I think legally and morally you can't deceive, you can't lie. So if I ask you, does the basement flood in the winter? You have to tell me if the basement floods in the winter or not. So, but if I don't ask you something that you know is a defect, it's buyer beware. So the burden is on the buyer to ask the right questions to make sure that they're covering everything. And this is questionnaires or whatever's necessary, to get the information you need.
So I'll give you an example then. So you're selling a house, somebody comes and they say, and the buyer says, are there any major problems with this house? Like, is that, and then you don't disclose the fact the basement floods everywhere.
Well, basement flooding is a major problem. So I think that's deception.
That would qualify as a fraudulent
so.
answer if you don't disclose that.
I think so. But if there's a leaky faucet, that's not a major problem, right?
Yeah.
So, and look, one of the things that happens when you buy a house is you send an inspector.
Yeah.
And so the responsibility is really on the inspector to figure these things out. Now, again, there should be a questionnaire that asks things like, when it rains a lot, does the roof leak? Because you can't tell that from an inspection necessarily.
Yeah.
Or does the basement flood? You can't tell that necessarily from an inspection.
Yeah.
But so there should be, the bias should be, because a lot of people say you're buying it as is, and I remember in the description when I sold my house, it was as is, right? I'm not fixing anything, and the inspector will come and find what he finds, and so even today, it's pretty much the way I'm describing it, I think.
And that was legal in California. You could get away with it, but you didn't have to disclose any issues, things like that.
Well, I think they had a questionnaire, and you had to answer the questionnaire right.
Okay.
Right. And the inspector came and they asked questions, but it wasn't like I needed to make a list of all the things I know that are defects in the house. It's it's the responsibility of the buyer to ask the right questions, I think.
Yeah. And we know in a free society, of course, like certification bodies or the real estate or whatever the agents would look like, they'd be, instead of this government controlled BS that we have today. I mean, there would be all kinds of, the quality of the transactions would go up.
Everything would be better. And right now when you buy a house, you sign these stacks of papers that are this thick. You don't read them. You have no clue. In a rational society, it would be a 1-page or 2-page that would be in English.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Andrew.
I wanted to share a therapeutic exercise or skill that I learned a couple of weeks ago that I think was really helpful. And I'm pretty familiar with the cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not technically from that school, but it reminds me of those kind of skills, which I do find, have found helpful in the past. So in case anyone's interested in it, you can look up cognitive diffusion. And I do think it has philosophical implications, like it's philosophically healthy. That
Good.
The concept of it is you kind of separate yourself from your thoughts. And you say, like, if you're having some sort of obsessive negative thought, like, just as an example, I'm going to have a panic attack if I go outside, then you basically articulate to yourself. And for the specific steps, I would say look it up. But like one of the steps is you articulate, literally verbalize, I am observing that I am having the thought that X, and you name the thought. So you separate, and you're like, the effect it had on me was I was almost able to get behind the thought and be more in touch with my mind and my brain that's generating the thought, and that empowers you to change your thinking. So that's the concept of it.
Okay.
So just wanted to share that with people.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jennifer and Amlan and Jacob, who was here earlier. We got one question. All right. Stephen Harper says, I recently saw the 1988 movie 8 Men Out, where the basic message is that the 1919 Chicago Black Sox were a few key baseball players through the World Series because the team owner was cheap, which was not even true. I vaguely remember seeing that movie. I'm pretty sure I saw that movie. And yeah, they try to make the baseball players as reasonable as possible for cheating, basically, for throwing the World Series, which was a horrible thing to do. They got banned for life. The baseball players got banned for life. All right. Thanks, guys. I will see you all. I'll be here with Nikos tomorrow. We're talking about Patrick Deneen and the post-liberals. See you.
Thanks, Yaron.
Bye. Have a
Bye-bye.
good weekend.
Thanks, Ron.